As musicians, as music educators, we are fairly conservative. We are a conservative lot. Looking past traditional ways of thinking is difficult. I firmly believe that we can benefit from using ideas that do not come from music educators or music educator theorists or music educator researchers. Looking outside, taking ideas and applying those ideas to what we do. This short presentation attempts to do that. I will use the ideas presented in Ron Ritchhart's book, Intellectual Character, as they apply to music education, as they apply to how musicians think, or how someone thinks musically, how they organize musical sound. First of all, I will suggest that musical intelligence manifests itself in two ways. We manipulate or create sound, or we interpret someone else's creation or manipulation of sound through notation. We are musical interpreters. Both are viable. For the purposes of this presentation, I am not including listening to music or moving to music. I am focused on the manipulation and creation of music in the mind, and also the interpretation of sound created or music created in the mind of someone else. The thesis of Ron Ritchhart's book is that we have a lot of smart people out there who do not use their smarts. They could think intelligently and they could think in diverse ways. However, they are not disposed to thinking. What I'm interested in, and what I believe our profession is interested in, music education, music, is to increase our culture's, our society's disposition towards acting upon the musical impulses that are around them. Engaging in music as a recreational outlet for a rich and active life. Engaging in musical creation or reinterpretation with family and friends as a viable alternative to the we, to TV, to many other things that we do to entertain ourselves, for lack of better words. The problem that we face as musicians is that intellectual character in music is sound. The intellect of arranging sounds and organizing sounds does not require words. It requires something else. So we have to take the ideas that Ritchhart presents and fashion them into a way that logically works for us and our art. As you can see from this first slide, it begins with acculturation or enculturation. Music is culturally bound. We can't get away from that. It's important to know that culture influences everything that we do intellectually with music. When sound is ordered logically, patterned logically, it makes sense. There are many studies that Sandra Treehub has conducted over the last 20-25 years that supports the contention that even infants, newborn babies, days old, understand the sonic order of how music is arranged in a Western culture. We're wired for it, and we don't know necessarily why we're wired for it, but we are. So, enculturation is important. Then on the process of interacting with music, there is a sound. And then from this sonic material, we use our musical cognition. We manipulate that sound in our head. No one can see the manipulations, but it's there. Next, we choose a medium, and with that medium, we have skills that help us manipulate either a trombone or our vocal cords. And then we use a set of artistic musicianship skills that we have acquired over time, and ultimately, we make music. Through the informal experiences of acculturation and culturation to music, the mind begins to organize sound in predictable ways based on the rules of Western art for those people living in Western societies. Through acculturation, intuitively, children come to know there are major scales, there are minor scales. Most songs end on tonic. Things are organized in groupings of 2 or 3, meters of 2 or 3. This is how we understand what music is. This is the scaffolding upon which music is based. In this slide, you see a more detailed model of the rest of the model that I present. At the top, you see there are various ways that we can get sonic material into our head. There's a series of steps that we go through, and ultimately there is music. And again, music in this particular presentation is conceived of as interpretation and or manipulation or creation. One of those 3. The human is actively doing something. While listening is part of it, they're actively generating sound somehow. Given an appropriate early childhood experience of music acculturation, the first thing that has to happen is there must be something to manipulate. This could be a sound, beep beep, or whoo. There are sounds everywhere in our world. And if we wanted to, we could take any sound and act on that musical impulse. We could act on the sound to create something using our musical intelligence. Another thing we could do is use a melodic motive. Beep, bum, ba-da-dum, bum. I could use that. Beam, bum, be-dee-dee-dee. That could be the beginning of a symphony. I don't know. It could be a rhythmic motive. Ba-ba-ba-ba seemed to work rather well for Beethoven. It could be a melody. Ba-bum-ba-ba-ba-bee-dum-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. It could be something as simple as that, and that we will do something with that little itsy-bitsy spider melody. Or it could be harmonic changes. And here's that one that everybody loves to play and loves to hate in middle school in that choir room or band room. Bum bum ba 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 bum. Heart and soul. Yada dee 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 dee. You could take those changes and do something with it. The first thing you have to have is some sonic event or sound or melody or something, and then you move on from there. Once we've decided on something, we've decided to choose this, then we use our musical intelligence, our musical intellect. And this intellect, this intelligence, is influenced by culture. More often than not, culture, society, the time in which you live, will press upon your musical intelligence. The way that we think about sound today was far different than the way we think about sound or thought about sound 500 years ago. The way we think about sound in a Western culture is different from the way Indians in India think about sound. culture is important. We can't get away from culture. The other thing that is very important to remember is that we manipulate things within culturally bound styles and genres. We manipulate sounds within conventionally accepted styles of music and genres of music. There are outliers here and there, but in the main, and what I'm interested in is the majority of the world, the majority of our society, not the outliers. Somebody will take care of the outliers. I'm worried about the big middle of everything. Most of the big middle of everything people will adhere to a culturally bound style and genre. So within a culture, you're using your musical intelligence, which is influenced by culture, and then you're going to have to, this is all upstairs, it's covert right now, then you have to choose a media. What medium will you choose, or will someone choose to communicate, to give voice to these covert thoughts that are going on in the brain? We can't hear music in someone's brain. It must be communicated via a voice or a tambourine or whatever it is. And to manipulate a medium, be it a piano or a clarinet or a trombone or your vocal cords, requires training. This we know. To successfully communicate ideas that are upstairs to someone else, you have to have skill. The next step is musicianship and artistry. Artistry and musicianship are those culturally bound ways that we sensitively interact with music, the phrasing, the structure, where we give weight, where we don't give weight, where we accent, where we do not accent. There are logical ways that music should be going to a point and then backing away from a point. When we slow down at a cadence, that is evidence of artistry. It is a cultural norm that in our society we're going to slow down. It is artistry. Artistry and musicianship is intelligent. And it is different from musical intelligence in that my definition of musical intelligence is manipulating sonic structures. You're building something that makes musical sense. And you've built this thing, you're communicating it via some medium, and then the expressiveness that you give to your idea through the medium, through musicianship, makes it music. At this point, we get into interpretation and manipulation creation. In interpretation, you start with, you're given a piece of music by Pergolesi or Penderecki or whomever it is. And then you have a medium. You're going to communicate that composer's ideas via medium, and then you use your musical intelligent artistry, the way in which it is presented, to communicate the composer's idea. That's one way. That's interpretation. You have to have a medium, and there's skill involved, and then there's artistry. That is another layer on top of that, and then there is the final finished product of music. When we consider manipulating a sound, beep, and turning that into a 90-minute symphony, or a rhythm, or whatever it is, then you're beginning at musical intellect. The mind makes all those decisions based on culturally bound norms and all that of what music should sound like. Then we go to a medium or a whole bunch of media as in a symphony, and then we apply musicianship to finally express in an artistic way those sounds that began covert in the head. We are at the point of music, making music. There's a lot of legwork, a lot of choices that go into making music, and they're all relegated to behind the scenes. Many of the choices that are made in making music in public school have already been made by someone else. If you play a clarinet, then the decision that you're going to play clarinet parts is already decided. There's not a lot of choice. And let's consider that there is choice. Let's start with the side of the model that says I'm taking a sonic event or a melody or something, and I'm going to manipulate it or create something with it. Going through that process in the previous slide to get to music, then we have a conversation. And conversations do the work of increasing intelligence because we're sharing ideas. Conversations begin with wonder. And many times, given notation and our typical secondary ensembles, in a way we could say that many directors wonder why they can't play in tune. That's not the wonder I'm talking about here. Wonder as in, I wonder why this child chose to do this. I would have chosen to do that, but this child chose to do that, or the other, whichever it is. And so it begins questions. It's about choices. Giving children choices allows them freedom to make decisions, and then from the choices and decisions they make, we can ask intelligent questions about their choices, whether we agree with choices or not. And in another video, I will present this idea of absolutes in music and choices in music. And there's not even a fine line, it's huge difference between absolutes and choices. And there are really very few absolutes in music, and there are tons of choices. So we get to questions, and then if we're wondering about students' work, and we're thinking about their choices or asking about their choices and the decisions they make, and we're asking questions, we are respecting the mind that created all of those things, whether we like them or not. And then out of respect, we show value. We show value for the individual who is in front of us. And then from all of these conversations about wonder and choices and decisions and questions and respect and value, we finally come to standards. Standards are important, and I believe they should come at the end of the process, not at the beginning. If we're asking intelligent questions about intelligent decisions children make about their music, then they will have to talk about music. And the standards revolve around music. You made this choice. Let's listen to how someone in Ghana chose to do something very similar to you. So instead of approaching it as this is the multicultural lesson, it's compare and contrast. Intelligent making of music. The intelligent making of music is the point. Intelligent, whether the intelligent mind is in front of you or 4,000 miles away. It's a discussion of how people intelligently make choices about music they value. Begin with the child in front of you and then expand from there. Imposing someone else's standards upon the child may be perceived as talking down to the children or holding up one type of music over another. And the point is to help children understand how intelligent minds make music regardless of style and or genre, or culture for that matter. As a way to sum up this presentation, after enculturation, once we assume, and we have to assume a base, which is someone is acculturated informally to the standards of a culture's music. For us, it's major and minor and duple and triple with symmetrical phrases. That's basically the standard. That from that start, someone takes a sound, a motive, melody, or a harmonic change and manipulates it with their mind. And they manipulate it with their mind through culturally bound styles and genres. And then they take those sounds and that stuff that's still covert, and they express it, they communicate those covert sounds through manipulating a medium, be it an instrument or the voice. And then they use culturally bound musicianship and artistry to express in a very musical way those covert thoughts that are being pumped through an instrument or pumped through the vocal cords to create music. Now, if we're interpreting music, we start with media and then add musicianship and we get music. But that is one way that I have been playing around with the ideas of Ritchhart in his book Intellectual Character and artistic character, or musical intelligence, or musical character. I'm really not sure what I would ultimately call this. There must be a musical equivalent to the idea that we are building in children this intelligence, this character, this disposition towards using what we give them when they are 43 years old. If the experiences we provide them end, if music ends at graduation, I really doubt that we have any reason to complain that music is not embraced as we hope it would be in our culture.